In a world where profit is often prioritized over truth, one question remains too dangerous for mainstream medicine to answer. Does the COVID shot kill? Millions of Americans were told it was safe and effective. But what followed tells a different story. A surge of debilitating illnesses, mysterious symptoms, sudden relapses, and untimely deaths. The shots we were told would save us may be causing irreversible harm. Welcome to the GoldCare Medical Townhall, where we confront the uncomfortable truths others refuse to face. In this groundbreaking event, we investigate spikopathy, the chronic compounding damage caused by synthetic spike proteins produced by gene-modifying mRNA injections. These proteins don't disappear, they don't stay localized, and they don't come without consequence. Mounting evidence now links them to inflammation, autoimmune dysfunction, heart failure, turbocancers, and more. The question isn't whether these effects exist. The question is, why are they being hidden? Moderated by the fearless Dr. Simone Gold, this town hall brings together a panel of courageous experts who refuse to be silenced. Stephen Kirsch, a tech innovator and data analyst, has become one of the most outspoken critics of vaccine safety narratives. Dr. Galen Perry brings deep clinical expertise in pulmonary and sleep medicine. Dr. Jenna Schmidt offers insights from the world of natural and integrative health. And Bill Nyman, founder of COVID Creative Care, shares his firsthand experience as a vaccine-injured executive turned nonprofit leader, helping thousands find the care and community they were denied. This is not just another event, it's a reckoning. If you or someone you love received the COVID shot and are now suffering physically, emotionally, or spiritually, this town hall could be the most important conversation you'll hear this year. GoldCare, built for you, powered by freedom, trusted by thousands.
Welcome to GoldCare Medical Town Hall, and thank you so much for being here. Our topic this evening begins with a very alarming question. Does the COVID shot kill? Joining us tonight is Steve Kirsch, American entrepreneur and tech pioneer. As a medical research philanthropist, he now advocates for vaccine safety, emphasizing transparency and data integrity in public health. We have Dr. Galen Perry, an MD with 30 years experience in internal medicine and pediatrics. For the last 16 years, she has specialized in sleep medicine, helping patients manage chronic sleep disorders. Also joining us is Dr. Jenna Schmidt, a board-certified naturopathic doctor and master herbalist. She advocates holistic wellness, develops natural products, and is also an ordained minister and published author. And special guest tonight is Bill Nyman, who launched COVID Creative Care after being injured himself, offering support, validation, and real medical options for thousands who feel abandoned by the system. Our moderator this evening is Dr. Simone Gold, founder and CEO of GoldCare. Tonight, we'll discuss the threat of spikopathy and the COVID shot. The public was told it was safe and effective, but millions now live with debilitating illnesses, mysterious symptoms, sudden relapses, and unexplained deaths, all since receiving the COVID shot. Were these truly vaccines or something else entirely? Why were we injected with gene-modifying mRNA technology that floods the body with synthetic spike proteins, proteins that don't disappear, don't stay put, and don't come without consequences? These questions are ignored, dismissed, even ridiculed, which is exactly why we're asking them tonight. But before you do that, consider this. There's a link you can click right there in the title of tonight's live stream. It's goldcare.com/Dr. Gold. This link is your instant access to GoldCare right now at no cost to you, with no obligation. Click it and sign up right now in about 30 seconds, and Dr. Gold will take care of your first month of membership. You can freely cancel anytime, but we're pretty sure you'll agree GoldCare is a must-have subscription. When you arm yourself with the facts and you protect it against propaganda and confusing news reports that keep you up at night, worried about your kids and family, becoming a GoldCare member is the key first step to reclaiming your freedom and control of your health, so you can push back against medical tyranny. Please click to retweet and share this important live stream, and then click that link to visit goldcare.com/Dr. Gold. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Dr. Simone Gold.
Thank you so much, Drew. And thank you. And hi, everybody. I'm so glad everybody is here tonight. It's going to be a great conversation. Most of you already know me because I started speaking up a few years ago about the propaganda and the disinformation that we were all being fed due to the SARS-2 virus. A lot of us woke up, some sooner, some later. But eventually, we had to reckon with the shots. And one of the questions I get the most over the last few years is about the shots. Like, there's people obviously with a lot of regret that they took the shot. And then there's people who just have kind of academic questions, really is the risk, because they're hearing so much conflicting information. One of the reasons we built GoldCare.com is because people actually do need to have doctors that they can trust. I mean, that is just something that's not going to go away ever. People always are going to need a source. And we have learned that doctors are not typically so transparent and forthcoming with information if they're being paid by third-party payers. So we removed all that, and that's why we created GoldCare, was to give you this solid information. Examples of what we do at GoldCare is exactly like tonight. We try to bring in like the best people who can tell you solid information. One of those, Steve Kirsch, I'll get to in a moment, but what I first want to say is, why are we calling this spikopathy? What do I mean by spikopathy? People use this word long COVID. They, of course, talk about being vaccine injured, long before even the COVID shots, but the concept of being vaccine injured. And then during the COVID shot era, they talk about long COVID. But really, these symptoms, to the extent that they have an organic pathology, certain people that are having real disease, it's coming from the spike protein. It's coming from the spike protein. And I feel that we should be as precise as possible. And for me, this is a disease of spike protein, and that would be spikopathy. I feel like that's a more accurate way to describe it than long COVID or vaccine injured, which could be related to lots of different shots out there. So spikopathy simply means pathology, that's the apathy part, pathology or disease related or caused by the spike proteins. The spike proteins are, of course, found in the SARS-2 virus that can cause COVID, but they're found in much greater number in the COVID shots. And the spike protein, once you take the COVID shots, can keep running in your body, causing your body to make more and more and more spike proteins. At this time in 2025, we have examples of people that took the shots years ago that are still creating spike protein throughout their body. So we actually don't know if it ever turns off. That's my opinion at this time in 2025. I'm so delighted to be joined tonight by everyone who we have, but we're going to start with Steve Kirsch. I'm sure most of you know Steve Kirsch. I came to know him, I think, in 2021, or maybe it's 22, when he started speaking out, and he was quite noticeable. He comes from this very intellectual background, a very rational background, MIT trained engineer, inventor of various technology products, and gives him a certain degree of freedom to speak his mind. And one of the things I heard about him was he offered $1 million for someone to debate him on the COVID shot being safe and effective. So that caught my attention, and I've got to know him over the years. I find Steve Kirsch to be one of the most reliable sources on the data, especially, and I'm so interested to hear, Steve, what you want to say about COVID shots being lethal, concept of spikopathy, and delighted to have you.
It's good to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So, did you want to start off with a question, or
no? Yes. No, you can just run, unless you'd like me to ask you some questions. But
yeah, I got into this quite by accident. I believe the narrative. They told me that the COVID vaccines were safe and effective, and that this was new technology. And the reason they could do it so quickly is because they had new novel technology that was better, faster, cheaper, whatever, than what we had before. So I trusted the FDA, and I lined up for my shots just like everybody else. And I was criticizing people who weren't getting 2 shots. And then I started running into some of my friends who either were killed or severely injured by the shots. And that caused me to take a look at the data just to make sure that, it was kind of odd. It was like I was seeing too many black swans. I had one follower who said that 3 of her relatives got the shots and they were dead a week later, and they were perfectly healthy before the shots. And I assured her that that was impossible because the shots are perfectly safe. And she assured me that all 3 are perfectly dead. And so that was the wake-up call for me. That I started looking at the data, and the data was very clear that the shots were killing people and severely injuring people. And so, sort of fast forward then to this bet. The $1 million bet is now a $2.5 million bet. I tried to raise it to $5 million and my other party didn't have enough cash to match the cash I was willing to put up. But I'm very confident that the science backs up what I say, and apparently, my opponent is actually confident that he's right. He just doesn't have the cash to match my contribution. But it's all about looking at the data. And we had a recent study. This is done by Joe Ladapo, the Surgeon General of Florida. And what he did is a vaccine comparison study. He looked at the Pfizer vaccine versus the Moderna vaccine, and he found out the Pfizer vaccine was increasing your non-COVID all-cause mortality by 36% or more at a minimum. Now, this is basically you're lining up to take a shot, which after you take it is guaranteed to increase your risk of death by 36% at a minimum. And that's for a theoretical 14% average all-cause mortality benefit that might last for 6 months. So it's a lousy trade-off. It's a guaranteed lousy trade-off. And you might not even get COVID at all, in which case there's no benefit to you at all. And so what these shots were is basically a guarantee to increase your mortality with a chance that it might increase your mortality less than 36% if you got COVID, because you get a slight benefit. But that was it. And we can actually do charts now where we can chart the benefit over time, the risk benefit over time. And it never really goes below 1, which means it was never really a benefit. It was, you get the shots, it goes unsafe. You get maybe a slight benefit if there's COVID, and then it goes unsafe again. So there was no real reason that anyone should get these shots. It's completely nonsensical. The data is out in plain sight. Anybody can download this check data and analyze it. Once you know how to analyze it, it takes about 5 minutes just to download the data into Excel. You can do it from scratch. You can create all the formulas from scratch to do the analysis in less than 5 minutes. And you find very clearly that these shots were a disaster. And it's too bad we don't have anyone on this panel where we can have a live debate on it, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think, right. They don't, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? I mean, when you read Steve Kirsch's Substack, you are just hit in the head with the data. I mean, you analyze the data, Steve, really better than anyone. I mean, I can't do it as quickly or as adeptly as you do, and you put it out there for the whole world to see on your Substack, and it's very, very, very convincing. And I did also see the Ladapo study. You actually are the one who turned me onto that. So this is really interesting stuff. We predicted before the shots were really rolled out that mortality would increase from the shots, but you've actually put the numbers to. We predicted that because of ADE. We don't have time really to go into all of that, but we just predicted that its benefit was marginal at best. Benefit really disappeared once the virus mutated. Marginal at best, right? I should explain why I'm saying marginal at best. Marginal at best because most groups of people were never at risk of death from SARS-2, right? It was only the frail people with multiple comorbidities. And then once the virus mutated, it was pretty much irrelevant. So marginal at best and highly unsafe, as we've seen. And by the way, not a shocking reason, my friends, why it's unsafe. The spike proteins cause clotting, which is the root of a lot of medical problems. And I'm going to turn right now to Dr. Perry, who has been a clinician for decades and decades now and have a lot of experience, particularly in pulmonary medicine, where we do see a lot of these problems. Can you share with us, your understanding or your perspective on a person having too much of this spike protein, in their body?
Yeah, thank you, Simone Gold and Steve. Thank you also for what you've done. I follow you, and it's amazing what you provide to us. So, I'm passionate about returning health to people who have been harmed by our profession, and we are seeing significant harm. I would say, a large majority of that is in the neurologic system, in the cardiovascular system, in the immunologic system, and then also clotting, as you've already mentioned. I am seeing individuals who are taking medical disability because they can no longer multitask, right? I'm seeing, 30-year-old military Marine who can no longer present to his commanding officer because he cannot pull words into sentences and present. This same Marine left the military because of uncontrollable palpitations and probably POTS as well. And so, from a sleep standpoint, I see a lot of people with chronic fatigue. Chronic fatigue syndrome or myalgic encephalitis or is the new long COVID, right? Individuals have this horrible fatigue. I've seen high schoolers present with new onset narcolepsy and seizures within a month of taking the COVID vaccine. So, from the neurologic standpoint, we are seeing significant neuroinflammation. We've actually seen autopsy data showing that the spike protein is in the meninges in the brain. There's parts of the spike that are neurotoxic. And we have studies that show that cognitive impairment is happening and that there's a rise in Alzheimer's. From the clot standpoint, I have seen 24-year-olds presenting with bilateral DVTs and pulmonary embolisms, clots to the lungs. I've seen a 16-year-old be told by a children's hospital it was due to his vaping of marijuana. I don't think so. These people have all gotten the vaccine. I have also seen, as I mentioned, this Marine with palpitations. So the spike protein alone, if you just drop it in platelet poor plasma, it will create a clot on its own. That clot is an amyloidogenic clot, meaning that it propagates misfolded fibrin. We've even seen a report within the last couple of weeks of a 3-year-old that this has been found in a mother who was vaccinated prior to that. And one of the alarming things that I've been aware of recently is microscarring in the myocardium that lines up with the terminal arteriole. So we know that clotting is happening in the heart, even with the ejection fraction being normal. And then the last thing from the immunologic standpoint, actually to Dr. McCullough's foundation, a Dr. Cantazzaro presented this week about the gene aberrancy of our housekeeping genes, that our immune system is dysregulated now. And in long COVID patients, 20% of the genes are aberrant or dysregulated. If you've gotten a vaccine and a booster, that can be up to 50%. So you can see why we're having problems with cancers and immunologic and autoimmune problems. And so there's a lot going on that we are dealing with patients.
I just want to share that before the shots were released in December or 2020 or so, we America's Frontline Doctors, we got together and we talked about it, and we literally wrote a white paper and we said, well, they haven't done sufficient study on oncogenesis, right, on cancer or on fertility, on miscarriages, on mutagenesis. Like we literally predicted all of these things. If people want to say, is this really a thing? I'm like, well, we literally said it was going to happen. Now we're seeing it. So yeah, I think it's a thing. So thank you for that clinical perspective. I think it's irreplaceable. Sometimes we like to bring in people who've been affected by these situations because they can put on a human touch in a way that really explains what has happened. And so I'm glad and grateful tonight that Bill Nyman is going to join us and explain his perspective as a person, not, that Dr. Galen Perry would try to help, right? This is a person who, like Steve Kirsch, went ahead and got the shots. And let's hear what happened, Bill, after you went ahead and took the COVID shots.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, I will not debate Steve. I'm on your team here. My COVID story started in 2021. And before I was really healthy and active and engaged highly in my work, family, and community. But in September and October of 21, I had some concerns. I actually decided to get the COVID shot, and it was because my 93-year-old mom was in a care facility. So I needed to get the shot so I could see her. And after the second shot, I had immediate inflammatory reaction, some pain and swelling, and honestly, this kind of weird episode of slurred speech. And that subsided. But in the following months, I developed a really unnatural fatigue, dizziness and headaches and unexplained, very debilitating neurological symptoms, and what I call sticky speech, difficulty walking, and some days, honestly, I felt intensely ill, and other days I felt pretty normal. It was very episodic in those early days. So I was concerned. I went to see my doctor in Kansas City, and my doctor's he's a great guy. He's a caring professional. I've known him for several years, but when I asked him, I shared a little bit about my timeline and was concerned about that, and if it had any connection with the vaccine. And again, he's a great guy, but he just looked at me square up and said, "Bill, it is not related to the vaccine." Just straight up, pretty dismissive. It's discouraging to me, but he did. In fact, he ordered some other blood tests, all focused on more the fatigue. Everything came back normal. And I do want to say, I don't have an axe to grind with my doctor. He's simply think he and other doctors, even now, sadly, they've not embraced the possibility even that some of these chronic symptoms may be caused by long COVID or COVID spike protein injury. Anyway, so that's a discouragement at best. So kind of fast forward, sadly, really in 2023, 2 years after the COVID shot, I stopped working. I've been working through all of this, and candidly, I love to work. I'm not a workaholic. I love to work, though. I believe in the value of work. So that was really hard. And then, but I knew I was getting sicker. It was getting sicker. And in reality, I was lying on the couch most of the day. And, that's one of those statements that you tell people, and it doesn't really reflect how sick I was. What was happening is every day I was exhausted. I was dizzy. I had headaches every morning. It was hard to speak and walk. I couldn't even stand for more than 30 minutes at a time. And so, as you might imagine, I just couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for the medical system to catch up, and I needed help. And thankfully, the person on your screen there, Dr. Perry, I met with her. She listened intently to my symptoms, examined me, and ordered some COVID-specific tests. And those tests confirmed what no one else had considered, that I had a very high load of spike protein antibodies in my system, in my blood. And another test she ran which showed potential microclots, as you've been speaking about, Dr. Gould. So thankfully, Dr. Perry, she immediately prescribed these medications and alternative medication supplements, something that I wouldn't have received from my other doc. And while under her care, this is now up to April 2024. So last year, Dr. Perry referred me to 2 COVID responsive specialists, one in San Antonio and one in Birmingham. And they confirmed my diagnosis, what's classed as venous insufficiency and microclots, which, as you all know, I'm not a doctor, but it's like sludge in your veins. I still have blood flow, but it's very, very slow, and I wouldn't recommend it. So I started. Go ahead.
No, well, I'm sorry, Bill. I didn't mean to cut you.
No,
I meant
you're
to say
good.
that I think this all started. What I love about your story, even though it's difficult and makes you unhappy as a doctor and as a patient, is that you finally found a doctor who actually listened to you.
Yes.
I mean, that is really like such a big chunk of it, is that we dissident doctors, I guess, we independent doctors who are thinking for ourselves, we at least give the patient the benefit of the doubt that maybe what the patient is saying is actually true, is actually happening. We don't immediately jump to the conclusion that it can't possibly be something that hasn't happened. I've had so many stories like that. You wouldn't know this. I've never said this to you, but we once took care of a 17-year-old girl. It was in 21 or 22. She took the shots. She ended up having very obvious signs of a stroke, very obvious. She was totally paralyzed on one side. I mean, it doesn't get more obvious than that for an ER doctor. And when they rushed her to the ER, the first thing the ER doctor said to her family was it wasn't the shot. The first thing. That's how you know that there's so much propaganda when a doctor can't even think straight and they have to get that out. So I just want to say, and we're going to come back to you, but the first thing for everyone who's listening is that you need a doctor or a healer who's actually going to listen to you. Like, that's irreplaceable. It all starts there. And then from there, it sounded like you found a medical doctor who helped you, who was also knowledgeable. Dr. Perry was knowledgeable about also naturopathic options as well as classic medical options. But at GoldCare, we actually put the medical and the naturopathic together.
Right.
And I'm just going to take kind of your story as a launching point to introduce Dr. Janice Schmidt, who's our wellness director, because Dr. Schmidt, as a wellness director with an expertise in naturopathic medicine, works alongside or independently on her own to see patients like Bill Nyman, sometimes with medical doctors, sometimes without. So Dr. Schmidt, there you go.
Well, thank you. That was a great introduction. And I do love working with others. I feel like we can utilize each other's strengths and experience because this is something new. This is not anything we've seen before. And I'll start off by saying that sharing that as a naturopath, I was naturally completely leery of any vaccines. Like I did my deep dive research. I wanted as much information about any vaccine so I could give the people that I'm helping as much education and information so they can make that decision for themselves. I mean, after all, the Latin word for doctor is teacher. So I take that to heart. And so with this one specifically, when I did some deep dive research with other doctors, I love teaming up and doing research. The more I learned, the more I wanted to protect people from it. I was shocked that this was going in people's bodies, that mRNA technology had never been used in this way successfully, even in animals. And they're just going to just blindly, give this to so many people, including children. So the more I researched, the more I realized that spike protein presents the biggest problem. I mean, when human cells are producing foreign, non-human protein in our ribosomes, this is whether it's from the sickness or from the genetic code mRNA shot, it's dangerous. And like you said, it produces spikopathy, which is this mechanism that leads to inflammation and cardiac issues, and the list just goes on, and we're still learning. And as a fertility specialist, I was shocked at what was happening with miscarriages and people not being able to get pregnant. It was just shocking. So I have not stopped since day one. I've just been researching and learning and growing and helping people. So many people came to me during this time with questions like, their loved one have COVID, or so got the shot, and what do we do? And honestly, I've helped over 7,000 people now with COVID, and no one died, no one went to the hospital, and no one has those lingering COVID symptoms that are often considered, like people call it long haul, but spikopathy makes more sense. And I wasn't really sure why, but what we were doing was working. So I was digging into the mechanism of why these natural things were making such a difference. And because I'm a naturopath, I don't do any medication. So this was all done with natural God-given remedies, no medications whatsoever. So, and I'm just, helping people based on their unique history, their unique health. And what I found was just absolutely remarkable that so many things at our fingertips build our immune system that many people aren't getting, like vitamin D. So many people are deficient in D, and that could have helped them, right? People in ICU, people in different retirement homes that are so deficient in D, and that could have helped them up to 90% if they had D levels at a good level. Could have helped them up to 90%. Lessen the severity of COVID or even going to a hospital, right? So
Dr. Schmidt, I want to make sure everybody said, so Dr. Schmidt said, I don't give medications. I just want to be really clear with the audience. America has really made a sharp divide between prescription medicines and really other medicines, in such a sharp divide that isn't really seen all across the world. So she does use medication. She doesn't use these are medications that are like derived from natural sources that don't then go on and get patented by big pharmaceuticals. And I'm not inherently against big pharmaceutical companies. I'm against the way they've been incentivized. I think they both have a role. I think the fact that medical doctors don't know enough about vitamins and supplements and things to bolster your immune system is exactly why GoldCare puts medical doctors and naturopathic doctors together.
Mm-hmm.
Medical doctors don't know, we know almost nothing about the naturopathic world, which is a shame. And you've taught me a lot, actually.
But together, it's remarkable when we come together what we can do for the health of each person. It really makes a huge difference in in the outcomes. They're remarkable.
Right. So when you guys have heard the word quercetin, remember in the COVID years, people talk about quercetin. So quercetin is something that Dr. Schmidt always knew about, right? I had never heard about it as a medical doctor with all the education I had. So I just want to say thank you. We're going to be back with everybody, but I just want to turn it back to Drew.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. The conversation has been great so far, and Bill and Steve have both pointed out a few things that are very important to understand, is that there are good doctors out there that can help you with this, and that is exactly why we created GoldCare. All you have to do right now is visit goldcare.com/drgold to get your first month on us. It's like Netflix or Amazon Prime, but instead of a woke movie or free shipping, you're getting the gold standard educational subscription for all of your healthcare needs and access to doctors you can actually trust. There really is no better reason not to join. And you can also get all the educational material plus see doctors for these exact vaccine injuries we're discussing tonight. Let's keep the conversation going. Back to you, Dr. Gold.
So I want to make sure the conversation goes quickly back to our guests, that I don't have so much to say. But I think one of the things that's really difficult is how much gaslighting there has been going on. I think, Bobby Kennedy, he landed where he did, but he endured years and decades where he was essentially being gaslit. People were telling these things happened, and then everyone's like, no, that's not happening. And then you hear it happening to Bill Nyman. No, that's not happening. And so this concept I call like from gaslight to daylight, like here we're paying attention. We're like daylight. So this concept of being gaslit, or, the proper grammatical way of saying it, I just think that's something that, Steve, that you can talk to really well, because you are, I honestly, not trying to flatter you, but you're the best person, as you are, in terms of analyzing the data and like putting it together. So it's impossible to be gaslit when you are reading your data and references that you've put together. So maybe let's try to educate the audience a bit on maybe how people are being, like, what things are people being told that are like patently not true, like not supported at all by the data? I mean, you probably have 100 examples.
Yeah, there's so much. People have tried to gaslight me, and so far nobody's been successful in doing that. But I'll do analyses, and they'll say, "Oh no, you got it wrong," or "Your method doesn't work," and I'll say, "Oh really? So maybe you can show me a case where it doesn't work." Or, "Gee, how come it passed all of these sanity tests, or what we call negative controls?" And so I'm always putting it back onto the people who are criticizing. So there's let me give you an example. The Retzef-Levy study that was just done on the Florida data showing the 36% increase in non-COVID all-cause mortality. They'll say, "Oh, well, it was a differential study. And so it just means that there's a 36% difference in mortality between the two. It doesn't mean that you have a 36% increase." And so if you don't know the field, it's very easy to believe that they're telling you the truth because they're the experts and you're not. But in my case, I know exactly what's going on and exactly what they're doing. And they're like a magician. Right? They're trying to distract you and say, "Well, look over here and look at this shiny object." And, whenever I get into a conversation with some of these people and I catch them in their lies, they always change the topic. Or what they do is they throw out a question to distract me. In other words, I'll say, "Well, how do you explain this?" And they'll say, "Well, have you looked at this?" And so the whole point is to distract people who know what they're doing. But for people who don't know the field, it's just, you just say these things and people take it for granted that you must be right. So in the case of the study, for example, yes, it's absolutely true. This was a differential study, meaning that they were looking at differences between the vaccines, and you can't tell where on the absolute scale those differences are. But they leave out one critical fact, which is that none of these COVID vaccines actually reduce mortality, because if they did, they'd be marketing these drugs as fountains of youth, where, hey, if you take this drug, you're going to live longer. So none of these COVID vaccines actually reduce your what's called non-COVID all-cause mortality. So when you have this differential of 36%, and the best case is that Moderna is a perfectly safe vaccine, it means that Pfizer is 36% more deadly, and there's no getting around that. But you have to know the field in order to push back on that. And then they'll say, well, the study didn't look at unvaccinated. So if you looked at the unvaccinated, you'll see that the vaccinated perform way better than the unvaccinated. Well, again, this is appealing to people because it's actually true. But the reason it's true is that when you decide to take a vaccine, you're basically raising your hand and say, hey, I have health-seeking behavior and I have access to medical care and I have a higher socioeconomic status and so forth. And all of those things together make you about 2 to 3 times less likely to die for your age than someone who doesn't opt for the vaccine.
I have a question for you. So just to put this in perspective to other situations, you're an engineer by temperament. So you are comfortable looking at a lot of data. For me, the data is voluminous that they're not safe and they're not effective. Is that your perspective, that it's just voluminous?
Well, the problem is that the data, that there are studies that are voluminous saying that, oh, these shots are successful, they're reducing your risk of a COVID death by 80% or 90%, and so you should take the shots. But what they don't tell you is that it will increase your non-COVID all-cause mortality by 36%. So and then they don't put it into perspective. So they mislead you with the statistics. They say, hey, 90% reduction in COVID. Okay, but if COVID is let's say COVID's a 5% problem, a 90% reduction in a 5% problem is relatively small on an absolute basis. So when you compare that to an absolute 36% and you say, oh, well, you could get a 14% differential in terms of benefit all-cause mortality for an average of 6 months, the trade-off isn't there. But you see, nobody's telling you about that because up until now, there hasn't been an honest health authority who is willing to look at their own data. Joe Ladapo is the only guy in the entire world who is actually willing to look at his own data to see, just do a double check to see whether he was being gaslit or not about the vaccines being safe. And he found that the vaccines were a disaster, but nobody else in the entire world wants to look at their own data. And so that's the problem here. So that you have these studies which show this marvelous benefit, 90% vaccine efficacy. And I verified you can get up maybe 81% is the best I've seen. But a lot of that is due to some nonlinear effects that the vaccine could be perfectly a placebo, and you would still get the same benefit due to the this what's called healthy vaccinee effect
behavior
and so forth. So so it's like the benefit was actually pretty minuscule for these vaccines.
Right. So I'm going to think of it like that. You might have had a 90% or an 81% improvement in a 5% problem versus 36% increase in all-cause mortality. So I guess I would rather take, the cold or the severe cold. And by the way, I took care of many very ill COVID patients, but they tended to be the frail elderly or those with comorbidities. It was never a life-threatening problem for most healthy people. And in fact, the federal statistics strongly bear that out. So Dr. Perry, are some examples of where, you're a practicing doctor, where people were kind of gaslighting you, like your peers or hospital, or just any kind of areas where you felt people were being disingenuous in how they were discussing all of this?
Well, I think just walking through the pandemic in general and recognizing that, there was a treatment for COVID, and waking up in regards to that and being told by my own boss that ivermectin was toxic. I have that in writing, and I was told you cannot take care of patients outside of our hospital system. And then when I began doing my research on the vaccine and I began talking to the infectious disease specialist at my hospital, I went to the chief medical officer, I went on town hall meetings to try to educate, right? We're responsible for informing our colleagues that are not aware. And, people blew me off, right? No, the myocarditis is coming from the virus not coming from the vaccine. Believe it or not, one of my sleep techs coded at home after taking the vaccine. She was resuscitated, thank goodness. And my boss's nephew ended up coding and had a biopsy proven myocarditis after he was placed on the ventilator. And I still could not get my colleagues to talk to me about the data that I was sending them. So I mean, I did a lot to try to educate my entire hospital heads of departments and got no open-mindedness.
I had to just share with you, doctor to doctor. So one of the just little gaslighting episodes that I lived through when I was practicing was people started saying that myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart muscle, was actually not a big deal. And I remember thinking, oh my God, like they never would have said that 6 months earlier. It was unbelievable, especially myocarditis in young men. That data started coming out in February 2021, came out of Israel very, very early. And I was telling my peers, and I'm like, are you concerned about this? Oh, it's not that big a deal. And I thought, well, I don't want to have it. I don't want my kid to have it. I don't want my brother to have it. That's just one example. Ivermectin being deadly or hydroxychloroquine not being safe. And yeah, just didn't mean to interrupt you, but like, did you hear that too? Like myocarditis, no big deal.
Oh yeah. No big deal. But then yet we know that the late gadolinium MRIs remain positive for 6 to 9 months later, increases your risk of malignant arrhythmias. I mean, it is a huge deal.
Yeah, and in good case scenarios, best case scenarios, it still has a very large impact on someone's life. For example, if you're in high school or college, they're not going to let you play sports. You're going to have to take meds. You're going to have to take repeated testing. That's like in a best case scenario. And everyone was just acting like it was no big deal. And I started thinking, this is so crazy. Like we're doctors. We're usually the most risk averse people on the planet. We're the ones telling everybody to wear your seatbelt and don't smoke when you're pregnant. And, don't even take a Tylenol when you're pregnant. But myocarditis, no big deal. So the gaslighting was very, very severe.
Yeah. Yeah. I call it more delusion, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Do you just for 2 seconds, I'm just like, it's very discouraging, right, Dr. Perry? Like how our peers were. It was super discouraging.
Yeah. It's disheartening. Even today when I try to talk to individuals and send them information, and I can't explain it, to be honest with you. And the only way I can explain it is it's maybe an unwillingness to accept that they were wrong, accepting responsibility for potentially hurting their patients. I think that's a huge burden for us to think about that. So it's really, really difficult to accept.
Right. You're right. I do think it's hard, but I'm still pretty angry about it because I've had to accept that I've done things that I didn't know. Like until I knew better, I didn't do better. I remember people would ask me about HPV and I was like, oh, the vaccine. I'm like, you should definitely take the vaccine. And the truth is, no matter what you think about it, I actually didn't even research it. I mean, I just said it. I was like, of course you should take the HPV vaccine. Yes. There's no problem with it. But I look back now and I said many things in my career that I did not personally investigate just because I was, everyone was saying it. So I didn't even think about it. If there's a silver lining to the COVID years, for me and for many of us, especially at GoldCare, is that we medical doctors have really now looked and turned to and worked with our naturopathic brethren and sisters in a way that we didn't before. I never really consulted with a naturopathic doctor prior to the COVID years. But as soon as I started hearing about quercetin, I got really interested in what I didn't know. And I was quite angry that all of my education hadn't even exposed me to these things. I never even heard of these things. And I resented that. And it also clued me in that there was a lot of censorship and a lot of propaganda because how could I not have even been heard of these things? So that's been the silver lining, Dr. Schmidt, is like how much you and other naturopathic doctors have taught us. I don't know if you have some other examples or maybe some positive examples. Because, people really started listening to naturopaths.
They did. They really did start to listen and turn to us. And sometimes we were last resort. And sometimes people heard that we had great success and so would come to me and say, hey, I heard you had great success helping these people and I want to go the natural route as well. But I was just thinking about listening to what you all were saying about how if you learned something was not correct, you change. Right. So I mean, I feel like that's the true heart of a healer. And those people that won't look at facts and won't change even if they find the facts are off, it tells me that they aren't in the right profession, right? So I feel like we're finding each other, the type of people who we truly want to help people, and we want to know as much as we can possibly know. We want to do it right every time. We want to help people to the best of our ability. We're finding each other, and it's absolutely incredible what we've put together at GoldCare and the types of people that have come together, because that's what we're doing. We're utilizing each other's gifts.
And so let's just take a little bit more of your time and you don't have to be, super specific, but I mentioned quercetin a bunch of times, and you mentioned vitamin D, but I want to also give people hope and options that there are smart people out there. For example, in the medical space, Dr. Perry and people like Dr. Perry, and smart people in the naturopathic space like Dr. Schmidt and her crew, about things that we can do and things that we can do to help people and offer people. Just a few words on that.
Absolutely. If you look at, most medicines are made from plants, and there's some very simple things that we can do to help our bodies naturally get stronger without a side effect of a medication. So for me, anything from a pharmaceutical, it's going to be under a microscope for me, because there's usually a side effect. But if you look at the plants and it's done well, it's done right with the naturopath's help, there aren't those side effects. It's just the healing takes place. So finding out what someone's deficient in and detoxing the accumulation of things that we're exposed to every day, whether we know it or not, we're exposed to toxins, and helping people learn to detox will make all the difference. And something as simple as reducing your Wi-Fi radiation can make all the difference in someone's healing. So teaching people something like that, yes, there's hope. There are hundreds of things we can do that are simple, that are easy, that are not expensive, that are making a huge difference. Now, for some, it's very severe illness, and it's going to take some work. It's going to take some time. It's going to take several layers, but that's what we do. And that's what we're designed to do. We're educated in knowledge, and we're ready and willing to help.
I love it. I love it. So great. And I just want to say strong again that I learned a lot about naturopathic medicines and the fact that it was very suppressed in the medical side, which I've already said I'm very upset about that. So I also want to turn this portion of the conversation over to Bill Nyman. The reason is, from gaslight to daylight, probably nobody could speak better to this being gaslit, right, than Bill, who you started to tell your story about. Immediately the doctor's like, it can't be the shot. So I don't know if you just want to elaborate on that a little bit, or just, other struggles that you've faced in terms of the medical profession not being responsive, right? The medical profession saying, it's not this, it could be that. Just the patient's perspective, or maybe how your experience would have been different if you had had access to people like Dr. Schmidt or like Dr. Perry earlier on.
Well, clearly the time is what you lose. You lose the time. And so with the doctors not looking at COVID and doing tons of tests, but nothing coming back that was telling them anything about COVID. And so really I was missing treatments. And if not for Dr. Perry to identify these different things going on in my blood, so I would have lost a lot. My doctor was very clear that it was not COVID. I still go to my doctor. Galen is really my primary doctor, but I'm going to my other doctor, and I go for my well visit. He knows I'm crazy sick, but I'm still going for my well visit to see him, which really doesn't make sense. So I think that the most important thing that what y'all are doing with GoldCare is you're creating opportunities for people like me to have people who are going to listen to these situations. Again, my doctor, he's a good guy, but he did not listen. And so I got stuck without having treatment that could have really, we lost 18 months.
Bill, so you're the reason us doctors had the energy to put this together, because we trained for so many years. We dedicated ourselves to learn so much, worked so hard. And I'm going to paraphrase what Dr. Perry said, but I felt a little bit betrayed by my own profession, but we still had the desire to help and the desire to heal. So we had to, one by one, find each other so that we could provide solutions to people like yourself, who are, our neighbors, And in fact, a lot of us our friends and relatives. I mean, I get so many calls, but
Well,
I got a call today.
I just want to add to that. So when Dr. Perry was taking care of me, she referred me to a neurologist in San Antonio, internal medicine in Birmingham, Alabama. And without that teamwork, I'm still on the couch. And so it's quite significant, that kind of collaboration within this COVID space.
Thank you for that. It's true. We are nationwide, and we have people in every state. That's just important because we are in every state, but it's also because it's so difficult to find independent physicians who are really just putting the doctor-patient relationship first, putting the doctor's needs first. So I didn't know that. So kudos to you, Dr. Perry, and we're glad for you, Bill. I'm going to turn it over back to Bill. Did you want to say anything else? I didn't want to cut you off.
No, it's just good. I just thank you for allowing me to tell a bit of my story, and I just publicly want to thank Galen. Thank you. It's really significant in my life.
Are you better, Bill?
I'm getting better. I still have a ways to go. I don't think I'm out of the woods, but as you know, in what it was 6 months ago, I was not functioning, and so going from very active to not active. So I'd say it's a long haul, and I don't mean a long haul just like the term for long COVID, long haul, but it's been very difficult. But I have a lot of hope.
Right. So we will be straight with you. I mean, I like that was a very spontaneous question. It was a very spontaneous, authentic answer. So doctors are not magicians, but they can use their skills, their intellect, their training, their care, and their love to do the best for each person, the best for each person that's possible. It starts with listening to the person. It starts by not gaslighting the person. It starts by taking the person seriously. And then sometimes you have to call in all kinds of different experts, and a medical doctor over here, or naturopathic doctor over here, or neurologist over here. Like, that's what you need sometimes, and to get the best possible solution. So you guys are super helpful in conveying the situation to everyone who's listening, quite frankly. There's a lot of people listening, Bill, who are in your shoes. And I know there's also some doctors listening, like, regretful that they're in a system that doesn't allow them to really help patients. So we really just want to help people, and we've got the resources and tools to do so. And I'm going to turn it back to Drew for a moment.
Thank you, Dr. Gold. We've had a lot of questions tonight about not only this town hall, but the other town halls we've hosted over the last couple of months. They are all available on the GoldCare platform. That's goldcare.com/Dr. Gold. You can join and become a member and have access to incredible information. Just like you're hearing tonight, you can rewatch this town hall. You can watch our cancer town hall we did last month, and the various topics we've covered over the last 12 months. Tons of educational material to arm yourself with the truth and help you make the best decisions for yourself. You can even see doctors like Dr. Jana Schmidt or Dr. Perry, who you've heard from tonight as well. Let's continue the conversation.
Steve, I want to ask you, as really as a very educated consumer, somebody who sometimes periodically will have to see a doctor, what do you hope for the future of healing, the future of medical care? You as a patient, family members, you're going to have to access these systems at some point.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that doctors are restricted. I just know too many doctors who, like in Canada, I know a doctor who was prescribing hydroxychloroquine, and he was told that if he did that again, that they would take away his license, and he had to sign this thing to say that, okay, I will, not do that. But we just need to let doctors be doctors and not interfere. And there's just way too much command and control here, saying that we know best and the scientific consensus is the best treatment. And I think that doctors that can go outside of that without losing their license are highly valuable. People who are independent thinkers. I mean, there's things like chlorine dioxide, which I used to think was not a viable solution for anything, and now I kind of use it religiously for a whole bunch of things. And so my eyes have been opened. I'm 68 years old, and here I'm getting my eyes opened after 68 years. It's quite astonishing. So I really think that the medical community has been just regimented command and control way too much, and this needs to change. And I think that I think COVID is going to help open people's eyes to just how bad the outcomes are. I mean, it's like vaccines and autism. There's so many people who believe that they don't know what the cause of autism is, but the one thing they know for sure is that it isn't the vaccines. And the one thing I know for sure is it is the vaccines. And there's just so much evidence that is very clear, and people are ignoring the evidence. And these doctors will not consent to any kind of rational debate with their peers.
So this is why, honestly, this is literally why we built GoldCare, is because we needed doctors to have a space and a place where they could have collegial interactions and collegial referrals to people who were independent thinkers. I think you know this, Steve, that I actually went up against the California Medical Board on that exact same issue. They came after me. They tried to pull my license for in my case, was just talking publicly about hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. So it was also a free speech issue. And I had to fight it for 3 years. But I'm super familiar with the pressure they can bring on a physician to not do the right thing. And so we know that for the future of medicine to serve patients, there has to be a way that doctors can speak freely. So within GoldCare, we have set up a legal framework that doctors can speak freely without problem. It's called a PMA. You'll learn more about that when you sign up. But we've done all this because we know that the future of healing depends upon doctors being able to speak freely, doctors being able to prescribe freely, pharmacists not being empowered or being reprimanded when they interfere with the prescription process. So yeah, we've all experienced these things in real time, and COVID did open our eyes. Dr. Perry, kind of the same question back at you, which is, how do you see the future of medicine like evolving from this? Like you and I both know how broken the system is.
Yeah, and I resonated with what you said before. It's like, I never got even a nutritional class in medical school.
That's right.
It's pretty jaw-dropping, right? And I do think the silver lining or the blessing of COVID has been recognizing how broken our healthcare system is and how inadequate our medical training was. And it almost seems like it was planned that way. It's just been very heartbreaking and discouraging. I think that, medicine is a noble profession, and it needs to be redeemed. And I am very passionate about that. I actually left the medical industrial complex and I started my own direct specialty care because I didn't want to participate in the system anymore. And there is a growing group of individuals actually in the Kansas City area that is doing the exact same thing. And I think if physicians recognize the power, and I don't want to use that in a negative way, the patients need physicians who put them first over everything else. And if they recognize that they have become cogs in a cogwheel and that patients are just looked at as profit, that they would be just as disgusted as I am and many others, and they would leave the system. So I think that's the hope of healthcare.
Yeah. So I was going to turn to Dr. Schmidt, but I mean, for me, what's positive about this is what I said before, is that I do think there's a future now where medical doctors and naturopathic doctors can work together. Truly, it wasn't even on my radar screen. I never met a naturopath, and I don't think I even knew there was such a degree, actually, to be honest with you. I mean, that's crazy now when I think about it, right? It's just crazy. So the future of medical care healing, like, what do you think?
Well, I feel like this, in the last 5 years, it's really catapulted us into the opportunity to do it right, to, as you and I have talked before, bridge that gap between what's considered allopathic, that's MDs, and naturopathic NDs, because they didn't used to be separate. They used to be together and everyone was learning to heal. But, if you look back in history, the Flexner Report, there was a division. It was all for greed and power. And and it wasn't for the right reasons, and it was separated. So, and holistic natural medicine was demonized because it wasn't lining the pockets of pharmaceutical companies. So they weren't teaching that in med schools. Instead, they were teaching just, so much more of the pharmaceutical side. So yeah, I feel like we're both missing a piece of each other, and that's what we've done at GoldCare, and you've done it beautifully. You've really bridged that gap that's been spreading and getting deeper for years and years. And now if there isn't a gap anymore, we work seamlessly together to help people, and one example I think is when someone is on a medication that maybe doesn't want to be on a medication, they want to know what else they can do. Together we can work and help them navigate that medication, navigate the natural options. And whereas just individually, like I would need an MD to work with me on that. And then perhaps an MD would need me as well to work for someone to find a natural option.
Right. So we see this a lot. I think last month or a couple months ago when we were talking about cancer, and we had so many cancer patients who said, "Oh my gosh, I take ivermectin secretly, but I don't tell my oncologist because he gets really mad at me." And so we don't have any of that. We have medical doctors, naturopathic doctors. They talk to each other. They like each other.
Yes, we're all friends and respect each other greatly.
Yeah.
Right?
There's not competitive. It's, we just have different spheres of influence. And at the end of the day, honestly, yes, we think it's the patient's choice. Like we want each patient to decide for themselves. Some patients, for whatever the situation is, they want the prescription, and that's totally fine. And other patients are like, I don't ever want to take a prescription, and that's totally fine. But as long as they understand, everyone remembers, I'm a lawyer. It's all about risk, benefit, and informed consent. So basically doctors were not doing informed consent during the COVID years. They just literally were not doing informed consent. Steve touched on like the percent, like your 90% reduction in your 5% problem. That would be really important in the informed consent part. Like if I'm going to take something, I want to know, great, 90% reduction. That's only part of the information. The other part, this thing isn't such a big deal. It's like the 5% problem. Like, so that kind of information that we give you, that's true informed consent. Like there's this problem, this is how it works. There's this prescription medicine that might help. There's this naturopathic option that might help. What do you think? What do you think is best for you? And we do that. One of the things we do, and Jana does a lot of it, Dr. Schmidt does a lot of this, works with medical doctors on this, but we strongly work toward deprescribing people. It's probably a term you haven't really heard, which is doctors deprescribing, doctors trying to get you off medications. A big category, not for tonight, would be statins, for example. Like it's all over the news lately, but it's been, we've known this for years. Like statins are pretty much the #1 bestseller for pharmaceutical companies. You got to kind of look at that and wonder why. What's the deal? What's the cholesterol? There's a lot to it. But let's say you've decided, you've heard it, you've been informed, probably by GoldCare. But hey, I want to go off the statins. How are you going to do that? What are you going to do? Like diet, nutrition. Can I go off the statins? What does it mean? Or if I'm going to be on the statins, what does that mean in terms of my risk factors? I can tell you as a doctor prescribing meds, I don't really think I ever gave informed consent when I was prescribing statins. Now that I think about it, it was just so common. So that's our promise to the patient, is to bring on medical experts, naturopathic experts, and quite frankly, outside experts like Steve Kirsch, who has taught me a lot about the data, the hard data behind COVID in general and the shots. And we can help you. We have appointments for you. We can set that up. Steve, before we close out, I just don't ever want to cut somebody off if they have any last words or last thoughts or.
It's kind of like, nowadays you need to do your own research and not trust the doctors and not trust pretty much anybody. Do your own research. And unfortunately, people don't have the time or the expertise to do their own research. So if you can't do that, then listen to both sides of the argument. Seek out alternate opinions and then decide for yourself who's telling you the truth, because I think this has been eye-opening for me. At first, I thought, oh wow, it's just the COVID vaccines that we've been lied to about. But it's about autism. It's about all vaccines, and it's about the whole vaccine schedule is causing autism. It's causing a whole bunch of chronic disease in America, and it's just not right. And this has been happening for dozens of years, certainly probably many decades. And it's time for this to end. And I'm just really hopeful that Bobby Kennedy is going to be able to do that. He's going to be making some of this public data available.
Right.
I think it's going to be really eye-opening, and people are going to realize that they've been lied to by the CDC for decades
Right.
about some of this stuff, and it's just really troubling. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm just gonna piggyback and tweak a little bit something that Steve Kirsch just said, which is really you have to do your own research. I'm a big proponent of that. I mean, I research everything, but here's a little cheat for most people who don't have time to research most things.
How my favorite cheat is listen to this to what the CDC says and do the opposite. That's my cheat.
That's true. If the media says it, the CDC says it, I totally agree with that. That's true. That one's even easier. But listen to sources that aren't getting paid to told you one thing or the other, right? So the whole medical industrial complex these days works by third-party payers, by insurance companies, by hospitals, by pharma, all of that. So we exited that system because we know that when you're in that system, you actually can't even attempt to provide the patient honest, neutral, unbiased information. You might get threatened to lose your medical license. You might not be able to pay rent because you don't comply with the vaccine schedule. So at the very least, if you're not going to research things yourself, get diverse opinions, as Steve said, on both sides. And the other option to consider is to talk to people who are not getting paid to do one or the other, which means you're paying them directly for their time. And that's what we do at GoldCare. You pay directly for their time. And Jana, any closing words? Dr. Schmidt?
No, the future is bright. Like there are some things going on that are concerning, but there's hope, and we've seen it, and we see people getting well and staying well. And I feel like just GoldCare is just provided this incredible platform as we've grown and bridging that gap so we can absolutely get people healthy and well and come alongside them. And it's bringing that doctor-patient relationship back that we've missed for so long. So yes, there's hope.
And we want to help people who have this issue. And we've set up a whole system, a whole way to do that. I don't know, Dr. Perry, Dr. Schmidt are going to be able to see members, consult with them on these issues, because we know a lot of people listening have this particular question. We're going to explain to you exactly how you do that, how you access that. Drew?
Thank you. Thank you. What a great conversation tonight. And thank you to Steve, Dr. Perry, Dr. Schmidt, Bill, and Dr. Gold for joining us. We just exposed the untold aftermath of the COVID shot and the medical betrayal that followed. Millions were told it was safe and effective, but today they live with mystery illnesses, chronic symptoms, and devastating losses. Our educational platform is full of accurate and uncensored information to help you answer your questions. And if you need to see a provider who can help you or a loved one with a vaccine injury, then GoldCare is the exact place to start doing that. It's incredibly easy. Just click the link in the title of the stream to visit goldcare.com/drgold and get your first month on us. Think of it like Netflix or Amazon Prime, but instead of a woke movie or free shipping, you're getting the gold standard educational subscription for all of your healthcare needs and access to doctors you can actually trust. You will receive some information after this live stream to announce a new program that GoldCare will be offering, where you can see Dr. Jana Schmidt and Dr. Galen Perry to help with long COVID symptoms that you may be having. Those appointments will be available starting at the end of this month in June. Thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll see you at the next GoldCare Medical Town Hall. Good night.
Do you feel like the healthcare system is failing you? That's because it is, working exactly as intended to prioritize profits, bureaucracy, and big pharma, while leaving you and your family vulnerable when you need care the most. We understand your frustration. You've been asked to trust a system that feels rushed, impersonal, and biased. You deserve better. That's why we created GoldCare. Here, your values matter, your choices matter, and most importantly, you matter. GoldCare is more than a solution. It's a revolution. Trusted by over 10,000 members nationwide, we've built a system that puts your wellness first. With ethical, independent doctors who work for you, not the system, you'll have access to care that's transparent, trustworthy, and aligned with your values. We understand that stepping away from the familiar can feel daunting, but staying in a system that doesn't truly serve you is even harder. That's why GoldCare offers a healthcare alternative designed to work for you. Whether you're ready to step away from the system entirely or prefer to keep your insurance while seeking the transparent care, ethical doctors, and education you deserve, it's time to stop trusting a system that's failed you. Take control of your health with GoldCare. Join today for just $10 a month and become part of the healthcare revolution. GoldCare, built for you, powered by freedom, trusted by thousands.